Really looking forward to watching this movie finally. I know it's been out for a couple of months. I didn't have a chance to see it in theaters. Reagan, with Dennis Quaid as Ronald Reagan. He played such an influential role in American politics, one of the greatest presidents in American history. And I think this is the first really big biopic about Reagan's life. Penelope Ann Miller plays Nancy Reagan. If you haven't had a chance to see the movie yet either, it's available for purchase at home now and video on demand November 1st, Blu-ray on November 19th. Penelope Ann Miller joining me now on the Scott Sands Show. Penelope.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Terrific. I'm such a big fan. I've been watching your movies ever since the 1987 classic Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh, my gosh. That was sort of the beginning, right?
I know. What a great movie when I was in high school. And you were, too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that you followed my career that long.
That doesn't make me a stalker by any means.
No. Just a great fan, and I appreciate it.
What's the difference in playing a fictional character, as you've done in so many movies and shows, compared to trying to portray someone as famous as Nancy Reagan?
Oh, yeah. Well, honestly, it's especially playing Nancy Reagan. That was probably the most challenging and scary roles to take on, because everyone's going to have an opinion, and then there's the comparison to the real life woman, and I felt like I owed it to her legacy and to her as a human being, and to her family and friends and people who knew her. I said, gosh, I better get this right, as close to her as possible. But the good news on playing a real life character is that there was a wealth of information on her. I mean, she'd written a memoir, which was really helpful for me, and I used sort of my Bible on set, and I just have it dog-eared, and it's all highlighted in sections, and but people that wrote books about her, and talking to her press secretary, and a lot of other people who knew her, and then watching videos and looking at photographs, and just to get her look right, and so there's a lot of work to do in terms of research, and then hopefully on the day when you've got it all going on, I can just sort of hopefully channel her somehow, and it helped to have the chemistry with Dennis, who's Reagan, and he did an amazing job, and their love story was such a big part of the movie, so having chemistry with him was really important. But yeah, I think it's harder when you're definitely playing a real life person versus someone you can just make up on your own.
Right. I want to get back to the love story in a second, but you talk about all the days of filming. Did those days in makeup just like permanently ruin your hairstyle? Are you permanently now in an 80s do?
Well, luckily I had 3 different wigs, because I play her from her late 20s into her late 60s, 70s maybe. So I had the 40s, 50s wig, I had the 60s, 70s wig, and then I had the classic famous 80s wig. And so, luckily my own hair was preserved.
Right.
So I didn't have to, go around with a Nancy Reagan hairdo all day long, and so that really helped me too, because her hairstyle and the way she looked and how she dressed was such a big part of her and her image. So to get that right, I mean, she was, she was a fashion icon. So, and people remember how she looked, and that was a big part of it for me, and helping me get into character, actually.
We're talking to Penelope Ann Miller here on the Scott Sands Show. Reagan is available now on demand. You can buy it on demand now, video on demand November 1st, and then own it on Blu-ray November 19th. Penelope, as you're talking about your chemistry with Dennis Quaid, that love story, the love story aspect of the Reagans, was such a big cultural moment for the United States at the time. Obviously, Reagan, a huge impact as president, but also watching them as a couple, they were really, it was really a partnership between the two of them.
Yeah, they were kind of the epitome of a power couple, and I think because he relied so heavily on her for her support. And, look, they met when they were actors, and he was Screen Actors Guild president, and And I think, and he was a Democrat for 40 years before he switched parties. But he was delving into a political career, and that was sort of the demise of his first marriage with actress Jane Wyman. But Nancy was willing to give up her career. It wasn't that important to her. She really wanted to be a good wife, and she really adored him and believed in him and believed he had a greater purpose. And if that's the direction he wanted to go in his life, I mean, she was all about it, and she really was the woman behind the man. And even their own son, said, if it wasn't for my mom, my dad would never have been president of the United States. He went into the governor of California and then on to the White House. But it was her belief in him and her support and his trust in her. She was sort of the one person I think he trusted the most and confided in. And she adored him, and she was fiercely protective, and that's just a huge part of their story and the story in the film. It's the heart of the film, really.
Right. The looking back, and I was your age when Reagan was president, but Reagan was such a well-loved man and a well-loved president on a bipartisan level. One of the greatest presidents in American history, right up there with Lincoln and Washington and Jefferson. But today, politics have become so divisive. Was there any concern going into this role that you may alienate some of your fans?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it, I think it's twofold because, on the one hand, people could think, like, why is she playing this conservative, woman? But at the same time, it's like we as actresses or actors, artists, why wouldn't we play all different kinds of characters? I mean, I played, Dahmer's mother. Mary Kay Letourneau. It's not about whether you personally are like, oh, I believe in them politically. I'm playing a real-life character that's part of our history, part of our culture. I grew up in the 80s, too, and I remember those times so vividly. And to me, it's important to, as actors, as storytellers, I should say, is to play, and that's the challenge for me, to play all different kinds of people and tell those stories. And it's not about, judging. It's just, and so what I've found is with my peers and fellow actors that I worked with and just people on both sides of the fence, like, they've really enjoyed the film. And like you said, to me, it's bipartisan. It's not a political story. It doesn't have an agenda. It's a story of a man's life from his boyhood all the way up until his presidency to where he gets Alzheimer's, and a love story. So to me, it's like, I didn't do it for political reasons, and I don't think anybody did. I think we just wanted to tell a story about a very famous, president in our times who, there's been no movie about Reagan that I know of. And to me, it was very interesting, and that was 8 years of our life and our history, and I think it's fascinating. And I think it's really about the American dream, and I kind of, I do think we all wish we could go back to the 80s, where it wasn't so divisive. And, Reagan was considered the great communicator, and it wasn't about, how much people liked him or didn't like him at the time. I think it's just a fascinating story, and it's about, our history.
Well, Nancy, I love you so much. That's about the best of Reagan I can do.
Yeah, you did pretty good. Good job. I think, just seeing how much she adored him and loved him, and, it wasn't about judging them. It was just about portraying them believably and telling this story. And it's really, it's moved people. And, the theaters, we've gotten a 98% approval rating and a cinema score of A, so that tells you something. The people showed up. The movie's done well in theaters. Now you can watch it on your home screens. But I just think it's really touched a nerve, and I think people are really emotionally connected to it. And even young people, even people that don't remember them, have loved this movie. So it's a human story, and there's a lot of action thrillers out there and a lot of animated movies, but I think this is, a true story, and it's a human story, and I think it's about all of us. So I think that's why people have enjoyed it so much.
And you're so terrific. Penelope Ann Miller, she plays Nancy Reagan in Reagan, which is available now for purchase and coming soon to video on demand on November 1st and Own It on Blu-ray November 16th. You were terrific in Dahmer as well, which was super disturbing. I know we got to wrap things up, Penelope, but as you look back on your time filming Reagan and what you were able to produce with Dennis Quaid, would you ever consider a career in politics?
Oh, gosh. Probably not.
That sounds like a hell no. What kind of dumb question is that, Sans?
I entertain, hopefully, people, and whatever I tell with my stories, hopefully people can get something out of them and learn something, and be entertained. That's my platform. I don't think people want to hear what I think about Paul. I don't think they want to hear my political views, and nor do I care to put them out there. I like acting, and I like telling those stories, and I like portraying different characters, good or bad. That's what I do.
Penelope, thank you so much for your time. We love you.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.